Zombie apocalypse preppers when an apocalypse actually happens and the military easily deals with a bunch of walking corpses.
Years of academy training wasted.
There is a non-negligible amount of desire in the zombie apocalypse, and any other kind of apocalypse at that. We fear the collapse as much as we long for it, because the idea of the world going out with a bang instead of a slow decay can appear to be, paradoxically, life-affirming. Sometimes you might feel like you'd fight a zombie over filling another Excel sheet. An explosion of adrenaline, an outlet for all the tension and frustration accumulated in the meaningless tasks of our everyday lives. The repressed pain and anger and stupidity. If the world is going to end, just get on with it. Just hit the reset button so the new world can come. That doomsday mentality, which sees the collapse of society not just as inevitable but as somewhat desirable, is central to Accelerationism. This philosophical and political theory has become incredibly influential over the last 30 years, and it has found a particularly eager following amongst the financial and technological elites. But what comes after the collapse? Who gets to shape that new world? And can fiction's most famous Armageddon teach us anything about it? Hi all, welcome to my channel. My name is Lucia, and this is the space where I talk about pop culture, history, art, politics, and today, zombies, for the third and last time. There have been a lot of new subscriptions after my last video, so I wanted to take a moment to thank you and to say that I really appreciate you being here. Judging by the comments, that was a very polarizing video, so I would like to clarify something. My intention with this channel is to think critically about the things that I find interesting. I think it's often easier to engage critically with what we dislike than what we enjoy, but I think there is value in both. We inherit many of our fears and desires, and questioning them can make us freer and harder to manipulate. I also think it's fun. And you're allowed to disagree with me, of course. I firmly believe that we need to normalize dissent without tearing each other up.
Nope.
Now, let's focus on the topic at hand, the politics of the zombie apocalypse. So, at the end of my last video, I concluded that while the characters in the zombie apocalypse subgenre often cater to a male audience, the fascination with the end of the world is a universal phenomenon, and it's not a new one. The vision of Armageddon, or the end of times, is very ingrained in Western imagination because it's a fundamental event in Judeo-Christian thought. Certain Christian groups today believe the end of times to be imminent, and this influences some political positions that I'm going to talk about.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
Yes?
I don't know. I would
This is a long hesitation.
The zombie apocalypse is just one iteration of the recurring trope of societal collapse, and the fear is not irrational. Like, sure, the end of times might not literally throw a bunch of brain-eating undead at your door, but it serves as a medium to represent the terror of infighting, civil war, and the fall of the social conventions that rule our everyday lives. Despite its grimness, zombie fiction can be considered a form of escapism, and there is something irresistibly appealing in this great reset for people on seemingly opposing sides of the political spectrum. Let's have a look. I would argue that one of the reasons why the zombie apocalypse is so popular, whether we consciously realize it or not, is because it allows us to envision a world beyond capitalism. And this can be said about many dystopian stories, but many other stories simply exaggerate capitalism or run beside it, rather than imagining its end and what follows it. Zombie apocalypses wipe the slate clean and show what comes after. In many ways, the trope can be read as a kind of accelerationist parable, a vision of what happens when the pressures and contradictions of contemporary capitalism intensify to the point of collapse. And I think it represents some of the fears, but also the desires that accompany this ideology. So, to give some context, first of all, what is accelerationism? Accelerationism is a philosophical and political movement that started in the 1990s but extends its roots in the Western canon to figures like Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari, Friedrich Nietzsche, and even Karl Marx. It's not that these thinkers were accelerationists, but they are influential to some authors in it. It's important to understand that it's not a monolithic ideology, but a constellation of sometimes more or less opposing branches. One of its central ideas, though, as Andy Beckett points out in this article, is that technology, particularly computer technology, and capitalism, particularly the most aggressive global variety, should be massively sped up and intensified, either because this is the best way forward for humanity or because there is no alternative. The spirit of the two positions is, I believe, perfectly exemplified by these two memes. One is eagerly waiting for the opportunity to commit atrocities, while the other is disenchanted, overwhelmed, and impotent. So this article by Andy Beckett in The Guardian from 8 years ago states that accelerationism predicted the future we live in. Knowing what we do today, I would actually argue that it contributed to create it. This is the ideology of many tech billionaires and politicians, people who shape reality.
Anybody with a bunker,
Right, okay.
probably an accelerationist. But an accelerationists are, they believe like, listen, the world's kind of shit, but the only real way we're going to get the world that we want, whatever we want is by us getting to that really bottom of the barrel worst moment that humanity will reach. And only once we get to that bottom of the barrel can we rebuild it from the top up. Be that a global war, famine. They have to wait for civilization to effectively be destroyed to be able to rebuild it in their image from scratch. And the accelerationists believe that the way we get there is through accelerating society as fast as possible. And so a lot of the people who are like heavily investing in AI are accelerationists.
In many ways, accelerationism is the latest attempt to make capitalism sexy, even as it claims to overthrow it. It's honestly kind of shameless, like it doesn't hide. Something like, yes, okay, you caught us. We know that capitalism is incredibly destructive and it's leading to our collapse and increasing inequality and social unrest, but that's actually a good thing, because from the ashes we can create something better. And the question is, better for whom, my man? In many zombie stories, the cataclysm, or event of contagion, comes as the result of a perfect storm produced by globalization and a process of uncontrolled acceleration in a given area. We see it with biotechnology in Resident Evil, where a corporation develops multiple viruses as bioweapons, destabilizing the boundary between research, profit, and militarization. We see it again in The Last of Us, where global warming creates the conditions for cordyceps to infect humans, while the globalized distribution of flour allows the infection to spread across continents. The dynamic appears in World War C as well, where hyper-connected international travel routes transform a local outbreak into a worldwide pandemic within days. And in 28 Days Later, we see a critique of ethically dubious scientific experimentation and activist media culture. In all cases, the complexity and unregulated evolution of the system push nature beyond human control. But in these stories, the world doesn't just end. It transforms and a new reality emerges, one where most of the population has either died or experienced immense suffering, but those are conditions acknowledged by accelerationism as well. In its left-leaning form, developed by thinkers like Nick Cernyshek and Alex Williams, accelerationism argues that we should repurpose the technologies developed under capitalism for collective egalitarian ends. Rather than waiting for capitalism to collapse on its own, they insist on building the political and institutional power necessary to redirect these technologies towards the public good. In its right-wing variant, advocated by authors like Nick Land, the godfather of the movement, capitalist technological advancement is seen as an end in itself. And any kind of social concern is seen as a brake on the unstoppable path of capital. Democratic institutions with their regulations, social concerns, and slow voting processes are an obstacle to capital. This right-wing variant is connected to the neo-reactionary movement, also known as NRX or Dark Enlightenment, which is an anti-democratic and anti-egalitarian movement which has gained a lot of traction in the US.
I want to play for you one of the most
chilling clips I've ever heard. And just hold on and trust me, because it's not that chilling until you realize what it means.
The basic idea was that we could never win an election on getting certain things because we were in such a small minority. But maybe you could actually unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through a technological means. And this is where I think technology is this incredible alternative to politics.
That's tech billionaire and Republican megadonor Peter Thiel speaking at a Libertopia, a libertarian conference in 2010. He's basically saying that his political ideology is so unappealing that it'll never win elections. And that's one thing he's right about, because he's railed against women having the right to vote, complained so much about diversity, and written some really disgusting stuff about sexual assault and consent. But he knows that he can use technology as a unilateral alternative to politics, and that should really freak you out. Today, one of his technology companies is gaining more and more power within the government, building the very systems our government relies on. And oh yeah, this is the CEO.
The central risk to Palantir and America and the world is a regressive way of thinking that is corrupting and corroding our institutions, that calls itself progressive, but actually, and is called woke, but is actually a form of a thin pagan religion.
If you're a progressive, if you have progressive values, meaning you just, care about other people, the CEO of the company building America's technological back end thinks of you as the central risk. He thinks of you as the enemy. Are these the people you want running the systems you rely on, or worse, the systems that surveil you?
In terms of political impact, online presence, and cultural visibility, right-wing accelerationism is currently far more prominent than left accelerationism. Left accelerationism, as it stands today, is a heavily academic niche ideology with little real political impact. The appeal of right-wing accelerationism for the financial and technological elites is obvious. If you're confident that you'll be able not just to survive, but to profit from the collapse and shape the world that comes after in your benefit, and you're a psychopath, then this sounds just like the thing for you.
The supercharger stations generate the energy during the day and then also have a localized battery pack so that people can charge at night. The Tesla supercharging stations would continue to function even in a zombie apocalypse. Just never know. That's coming one day. We know it.
Sounds like hell. But this ideology is also popular amongst some less privileged classes, as it has managed to overlap with right-wing apocalypticism and white replacement ideologies that harness the fear of a perceived threat to conservative values, culture, and religion.
I'm Peter Thiel, and I know about the Antichrist.
The way the Antichrist would take over the world is you talk about Armageddon nonstop. You talk about existential risk nonstop.
Okay, so first, what is the Antichrist? The Antichrist is a newer, more human form of Satan that will soon walk the earth.
In the 17th century, I can imagine a Dr. Strangelove, Edward Teller type person taking over the world. In our world, it's far more likely to be Greta Thunberg.
So he says that alerting people about the Armageddon, for instance, raising the alarms about the environmental destruction, is what will bring about the Armageddon, which is so convenient. Who's really to blame? The person who committed a heinous crime, or the person who saw it and cried for help? It's a tricky one.
You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance, in technologies of warfare, and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building.
Why is there a camera inside the girl's bathroom?
To stop the Antichrist.
For these people, it's not so much that the end of the world is coming. It's already here in the form of wokeness, ethnic inclusivity, and cultural Marxism. As this article by Amanda Taub and Katrin Benhold points out, all of this right-wing activism is already in a state of encounter with the end of the world. Immigration, intermarriage, and falling birth rates are all leading towards a time when countries like the United States will no longer be majority white. For people in this ideology, that's already the end of the world. These movements used racism as a tool for success. The loss of white purity is perceived as a biological infection. Multiculturalism is a cultural infection. In many ways, these people feel like they are already surrounded by zombies. The zombie has long been associated with a threat to individuality by a collective, homogeneous mass of brainless, violent, subhuman creatures. As I mentioned in my first video on zombies, they have their origin in slaves, and many have used them as metaphors for the marginalized parts of society, both to defend them and to attack them.
If you walk around the streets of San Francisco and many downtowns, so go to downtown Philadelphia right now, you know, they call the people homeless, but the homeless is the wrong term. Violent drug zombie.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, you know, you look at them, you say, like, homeless is a misnomer. It implies that someone got a little behind on their mortgage, and if you just offer them a job, they'd be back on their feet.
Yeah.
So they're like shuffling down the street with dead eyes, you know, and with like needles, you know, on this, and human feces on the streets. Like one of the most beautiful cities in the world.
Oh, yes, the greatest.
And now you have to step over the drug needles and the feces and the bodies.
In her essay, Abject Posthumanism, Neoliberalism, Biopolitics and Zombies, Cheryl Vint makes a connection between the zombie, the slave, and the present-day migrant in the imagination of Western societies, who fear being contaminated by them, yet need their labor. The world of such laborers, whose physical bodies but not human subjectivities are required by capital, parallels the subjectivity by what Akile Mbembe calls necropolitics, where the subject is kept alive but in a state of injury, in a phantom-like world of horrors and intense cruelty and profanity. Talking about the downfall of the environment and globalized neoliberalism, she says, "The victims of natural disasters and global economic collapse are the new living dead, alive, but without a place in the live worlds of neoliberal governance. As the world deteriorates, and if neoliberalism becomes less regulated, more and more people are going to fall into poverty, and with poverty comes dehumanization." The interesting thing about zombie films is that they often reflect the dehumanization of both zombies and humans, asking the question of whether protecting a humanity that has become brutal and lacks all sense of compassion is even a worthy cause. The apocalypse comes to highlight that the greatest danger comes from dehumanization.
This is what I've seen in the 4 weeks since infection. People killing people. Which is much what I saw in the 4 weeks before infection and the 4 weeks before that and before that, as far back as I care to remember, people killing people.
But the positions of accelerationism romanticize violence, and like in a zombie film, many are ready to grab a gun and heroically defend what's theirs. As I was editing this video, news came out that the police in Spain dismantled the first accelerationist terrorist cell found in the country. It was connected to the US white power organization, the Base. Officers seized 2 firearms, replica guns, ammunition, knives, and tactical military training gear, as well as accelerationist material and neo-Nazi paraphernalia. In the previously mentioned New York Times article, Amanda Taub and Katrin Benhold write, "For QAnon is the storm when mass violence will topple the elite cabal of pedophiles who they imagine to be running the government. White power groups in the United States have long promised a catastrophic race war, and in Germany and Austria, neo-Nazis herald an imagined putsch on day X, when the democratic order collapses and they take over." The line between preparing for day X and precipitating it is becoming increasingly blurred. The danger of accelerationism is that it sanctifies violence, said Matthias Quent, an expert on far-right extremism. Mythical days of reckoning serve as a call to action, a pretext for terrorism. These extremist groups are reported to be particularly appealing to a young male demographic. And this is what I meant when I made a brief comment in my previous video that the same fantasy of male power that is represented in some zombie apocalypse fiction is used by extreme right-wing political movements to lure in frustrated young men. It's the call to action, the hero's awakening. There's brotherhood, and a cause to believe in. The powerful have always needed fantasies to lure in soldiers. Otherwise, who would agree to fight and possibly die for the benefit of people who will be counting their profits from very far away from the action? Be a man, defend your country and your values, and then the wealthy get their millions, and the soldiers get the PTSD and a bunch of crimes in their conscience. A narrative can be used to justify monstrous acts, so it's good that we analyze them in fiction so that we can recognize them in real life. As an example, Andy Beckett writes, "Celebrating speed and technology has its risks. A century ago, the writers and artists of the Italian futurist movement fell in love with the machines of the industrial era and their apparent ability to invigorate society. Many futurists followed their fascination into warmongering and fascism. While some futurist works are still admired, the movement's reputation has never recovered. Ultimately, the level of complexity of the world is overwhelming beyond any one individual's comprehension, let alone agency. We can't even tell anymore what's real, and people long for simpler times. The world that emerges after the zombie apocalypse is an ugly, ultra-violent world, but it's also a simple one. The us versus them creates a sense of community that we crave in this disjointed, isolating society. The fall of telecommunications means that we can experience life unadulterated by the dulling mediation of technology. The constant presence of death heightens the value of life. The characters' efforts are dedicated to survival, something direct and meaningful, not abstract labor that only serves to make someone else richer. Aside from the obvious, there is plenty to romanticize in that scenario. But the worst part is that the world that the Dark Enlightenment seeks to bring about is anything but simple or life-affirming. It's a world where Tesla charging stations keep going while everyone dies. Human life and well-being have no intrinsic value in that system. In many ways, it's exactly the opposite of what I just described. I think what some people are not seeing, both left and right, is that in that accelerationist, post-capitalist world, we, regular, ordinary people, we are the zombies, not the survivors. Okay, that was again a pretty heavy one. This was the last video on zombies, and I have to say I enjoyed researching them a lot. It's a fascinating topic, and to be honest, I could continue making videos about zombies. There is so much to say, there is so much that I didn't include in the end. But I'm not going to lie, I'm also looking forward to making a couple of more light-hearted videos next. So I think the next one is going to be demons, which I know doesn't sound light-hearted, but it's just definitely, it's less political. So don't forget to subscribe if you're excited about that one and the following ones, and please give this one a like if you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and see you soon. Okay, bye.